Hey, this is James here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting January the 13th, 2020. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this week's video reading. This week I wanted to work with Gypsy Cards because it's been quite some time since I worked with that system in this space. So the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is the Retro Gypsy Cards. They are by Lynn Boyle, and as always I will be leaving information about the deck in the description box below so you can learn more about it. Again, I'm working with the Retro Gypsy Cards by Lynn Boyle, and now that I've set things up, let's get to the table and take a look at what the Retro Gypsy Cards has to say about the week ahead. And here we are with the cards on the table, and I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the deck. And as I shuffle, I'm focusing on my usual intention for these weekly general readings, and that is for receiving the information, the insight, the guidance and advice that is going to be most helpful and beneficial regarding the upcoming week. Feeling one more time will be good. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. And fan the cards out. And now I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention, because I'm feeling like I want to work with a line of 5 this week. And now I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and we'll put that to one side. Now I'm going to count back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're going to lay the cards out in a line from left to right. All right, so I'm going to start with the middle card. For me, the middle card represents the central issue or the focus. And here we have loss. It seems like when I work with this deck in particular, this card likes to show up as the center card. So the loss card for me, based on the imagery, can represent a gamble, right? We have people in what looks like a casino setting. So here we have games of chance. So this could just represent taking a chance on something this week, taking a gamble. And with both of those options or interpretations, the question becomes, what level of risk are you willing to take with that chance or that gamble, right? For some people, it may be about taking a good look at the level of risk. You may be risk averse, and so you may want to take a look at that before taking that chance on or taking the gamble. I'm looking at the roulette wheel, and so that for me can represent cycles and patterns. So for some of us, we may be encouraged to take a look at repeating cycles and patterns, especially when it seems like something's just going around and around and around, and maybe we're not getting anywhere, metaphorically speaking. Because in this regard, the word loss, it's the name of the card, can represent shortcomings. So where in life do you feel maybe you're in a repetitive cycle or pattern and that you're coming up short? Right? And then, to flip that, you know, if you realize that's the case, would you be willing to take the chance or take the gamble on changing that cycle or pattern? Right? So that's what I always see with the loss card. Typically, it represents dealing with a sense of loss or, you know, shortcomings. But because of the imagery, I have added those other elements into that, into this card and its meanings. So again, first and foremost, I think it's about taking a chance, you know, gambling on something. And then having to ask yourself, what are the odds? Are the odds in my favor? Are they against me? You know, that kind of thing. Or, you know, taking a look at cycles and patterns that repeat again and again, and would you be willing to take the chance on changing that dynamic, right? For me, in that regard, for someone, the message in particular is that it's time to cut your losses and walk away from the table. That's what I'm being told to say. Okay, so now let's take a look at the surrounding cards because they may give us more information about this particular card, starting with the card on the far left. Okay, so I had a feeling this card was going to show up. So here we have the thought card. So thought usually for me can represent thinking and planning, right? So this starting off the line here, we have an idea about, you know, our thinking about our plans, or, you know, putting our plans into action, that kind of thing, right? So there is that, and giving some thought and consideration to what our plans are going forward. Now, if we go with the idea, I'm feeling led to say this regarding the idea here of cycles and patterns that repeat, you know, maybe wanting to end a particular cycle, you know, cutting our losses, that kind of thing, then this is a spiritual card in that regard, because this card can represent meditation and contemplation, right? So it could just be meditating on a situation that seems like that, contemplating a situation like that, or if you are wanting to change the dynamics, right? Remember, this is about thinking or planning. You know, if you want to change the dynamics of that repetitive cycle or pattern because it's no longer working for you, right? Then this card is about giving that some serious thought and consideration and then coming up with a plan. Now I'm looking, and sometimes with the image, I tend to look at this as like she's looking at putting something in her calendar, her day timer. That's what it looks like to me. It could be another type of book, but for some reason that always comes to be about like a day timer. So that's about planning, like putting something on a calendar. There may be something about that that changes or shifts, right? It makes me feel like you're taking a chance on putting something down on the calendar because it might shift or change, right? And then the other thing here would be about taking a risk or a gamble or a chance on something. If we go with this as the focus, then this card as the starting card would say there's a need for research or analysis into that. And it would be you do the research and you put in the time for analyzing the situation so you don't come up short. It's making me feel like the more informed you are, the better your chances are. So again, thought is about thinking and planning. It's about research and analysis, but it's also about meditation and contemplation. So that is thought. So now let's take a look at the card in between. And here we have money. Doesn't this make so much sense? Okay, so now here we have money playing a factor in between the thinking and the planning and the gamble and the chance, right? So there may be, money may be playing a role or a part in that, right? So somebody may be wanting to take a chance on creating more financial abundance in their life, because I'm seeing all different forms of currency here in the card image, right? Or somebody's giving some serious thought and planning into their financial future if I read the order of the cards left to right, right? This is thinking and planning, financial future, right? Or that somebody's doing some sort of analysis on their financial picture, right? And it may be precipitated, or the reason for it may be because of wanting to take a chance on something, like an opportunity has presented itself. And so, like, do we have the money for that chance? Do we have the money for that opportunity? You know, it's making me feel, keeping with the gambling analogy here, you know, are we going to go all in is what's coming to me. But that's what I'm seeing. With these two cards, it's making me think about, you know, thinking and planning about finances or pertaining to money. I'm going to go with thinking about our financial future. Now, if it's not about money in the literal sense, then what's coming to me in the moment is that there may be some attention being put on what we value, right? Because money is a value system. So it's making me feel like what, at this point in time, maybe at this stage in life, somebody's giving some thought and consideration into what they value. So it could be money in the literal sense for some, and it could go beyond money in the sense for other people. So that's what I'm seeing with money. So now let's take a look on the other side of loss. And here we have The Death card. Okay. So the Death card for me usually represents something coming to an end. So it's making me feel like more, I would put this more with the idea about repetitive cycles and patterns. You know, the idea where I talked about cutting your losses and walking away from the table. Then the Death card following that would make me feel like that's the case. That's the ending of something. And the angel on the card is facing this. So this usually is a visual cue or a directional cue about what's coming to an end. And the interesting thing about the image here, that there's one side of the card that has dark clouds and then the rest of it is light. So this is what's lightening up. So it'll be very interesting to see what's on this side, because it makes me feel like the future is bright on this side, right? If this is the past facing that way, then, or what's passing, right? Transitioning, right? So I'm going to go with the two cards here. I'm feeling that this is more about cycles and patterns, dealing with cutting our losses or where we're coming up short, and we're wanting that to come to an end. Now, the only other thing I will say, because of the image on this card, for me, this can represent angels, right? So this could just be somebody who is opening up in a greater way with the wheel. The wheel can represent evolution, a revolution, expansion, right? If I go with the idea that this is reminding me of the Wheel of Fortune from Tarot, then this could be, you know, an opportunity opening up for some kind of evolution or expansion, right? So this would be about value being put into evolution, expansion, right? And then this would be about meditation and contemplation if we give it the more spiritual slant. And then this would be possibly having to do with angels. So this could be like a guardian angel, presence of angels, like somebody opening up to the angelic realm. So there's that I'm seeing, right? But I think in the more mundane sense, this is about something coming to an end, something being finalized, something being terminated, and it's going in this direction. Okay, so now let's take a look at what's on the other side of the angel here. And here we have gift. Okay, so very interesting. So we have it with the lost card in terms of my interpretation about, you know, an opportunity, a chance, a gamble, right? With gift, gift for me usually represents something that's being offered to us or something that's being presented to us, right? And what I like, going with the idea of the way it looks, is like this is more, I'm playing on the visual, this is more rosy than this. So whatever this is, it's about ending something that maybe has too great a risk or too great of a chance of coming up short or too great of a chance of loss. And this is more rosy, right? If we go with the idea that the roses represent something that's blossoming, something that's blooming, something that's unfolding, right? So there's that. And for me, gift implies something having to do with the holidays. And as I'm looking, I'm thinking of the more commercial aspect in terms of holidays. And it's making me feel like there may be something having to do with, for somebody, this may be about playing in the game of love, because it's making me think of Valentine's Day with the roses. And gift for me can usually represent holidays or parties or some kind of celebration. So with that, I'm getting a sense of like, I'm seeing Valentine's Day in my head, so it's making me feel about the game of love. And someone's actually tired of coming up short in that. And so that would play into giving some thought and consideration about what you value. Right? Because this card is coming, I'm coming back to this card, it's making me feel like somebody's been spinning their wheels in that regard. You know, like they played in the game and they've come up short. But it's making me feel like whatever is contributing to that, if you get to some awareness about what's contributing to that, or what role you play in that, you might have some awareness as to how you can end that cycle or pattern, and then that would set the stage for something more rosy to come into your life. Now, if I mirror the cards, we have thought and gift. This is about thinking about an offer being presented. And if that's the case, it may be about doing some research and analysis. Let's not leave that part out. right? So we have to think. There may be some planning we may need to do. Going with the planning aspect in this card with a floral bouquet would make me think about making arrangements. That's an arrangement of flowers, right? And again, it's because of the central issue here about being the possibility of a gamble or taking on some kind of risk. So that is how I will look at this week's line. And on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook here. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. One that is bright and rosy. Take care.